The black rocks of the canyon walls rose like teeth on both sides of the narrow path. Captain Lee Minji moved forward with her hand raised, signaling her team to stay low. The reconnaissance mission had been simple on paper. Get in, scan the Vrath military base, get out. Nothing about this felt simple anymore. The air smelled wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Minji had led 15 missions into enemy territory. She knew when something was about to go bad. Her instincts screamed at her to pull back, but command needed this intel. The Vrath had been pushing into human space for 3 years. Every piece of information mattered. She took another step forward. The ground beneath her boots crunched on loose stone. Then the world exploded into light and pain. Plasma fire erupted from the canyon walls above. Her shields flared bright blue and died within seconds. The ambush was perfect. They had been waiting. Minji tried to dive for cover, but something hit her back with the force of a truck. Heat. Burning. Her legs stopped working. She hit the ground hard. Her rifle skittered away across the rocks. More plasma bolts screamed overhead. She could hear her team returning fire, shouting coordinates, calling for extraction. Minji tried to move her legs. Nothing. She looked down and saw the charred hole in her armor, right at the base of her spine. The pain came a second later, crashing through her like a wave. She bit down on her lip to keep from screaming. "Captain's down," someone shouted. "Private Kang Hyun, maybe." Everything sounded far away. Hands grabbed her shoulders. Someone was dragging her backward, toward the extraction point. She could still move her arms. She pulled her sidearm and fired blindly at the canyon walls, covering their retreat. The next few minutes were chaos. Her team formed a defensive circle around her. The gunship arrived in a roar of engines. Strong arms lifted her off the ground and carried her up the ramp. The last thing she saw before the doors closed was the canyon filling with more Vrath soldiers. Too many to count. Then everything went dark. She woke up 3 days later in a military hospital on Earth. The doctors stood around her bed with careful faces. They told her the plasma bolt had severed her spinal cord. Clean cut, they said, as if that made it better. They could do many things with modern medicine, but they could not fix this. Her legs would never work again. Minji stared at the white ceiling and said nothing. The military gave her medals. They gave her an honorable discharge. They gave her a wheelchair and physical therapy, and a small apartment near the Veterans Center. What they could not give her was purpose. 6 months passed like a blur. She learned to move around in the chair. She learned to dress herself, cook, do all the basic things, but every morning she woke up and felt like half a person. She had been a soldier for 10 years. A scout, a leader, now she was nothing. Her old squad members visited sometimes. They meant well, but she could see the pity in their eyes. Private Kang brought her groceries. Sergeant Onari helped her fill out paperwork. They talked about the war, about missions, about anything except what she had lost. Minji stopped answering her door after a while. Then one morning her comm unit buzzed. The screen showed Admiral Cho Deoksu, her former commander. She almost did not answer, but old habits were hard to break. "Captain Lee," the Admiral said when her face appeared on the screen.
He did not look well.
New lines creased his face. "I'm not a captain anymore, sir," Minji said. "You'll always be a captain to me." He paused. "I need your help," Minji almost laughed. "Sir, I can barely help myself these days. It's the Vrath homeworld. All communication stopped 2 weeks ago. Complete silence. We sent probes. The readings are strange. No military activity. No signals, nothing." "Maybe they're planning something," Minji said. "Maybe. Or maybe something happened to them." The Admiral leaned forward. "We're sending an investigative team. Scientists, security, the works. But I need someone who knows the Vrath. Someone who's fought them. Someone smart enough to spot a trap. You need me in a wheelchair on an alien planet." Minji kept her voice flat. "I need your brain, Captain. Your experience. The team will handle the physical work. But I need you to lead them." He paused. "I need you to feel useful again." The words hit harder than she expected. Minji looked down at her useless legs. Then she looked back at the screen. "When do we leave?" The transport ship took 6 days to reach the Vrath homeworld. Minji spent the time studying everything they knew about the enemy. Their culture, their biology, their technology. She also studied the team manifest. 15 scientists, 20 security personnel, 3 pilots. All of them had been briefed that their leader could not walk. She wondered how many of them thought it was a joke. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel in orbit around the purple-gray planet. The silence was immediate and wrong. A military civilization did not go quiet like this. There should have been challenge signals, defense satellites, patrol ships. There was nothing. They landed at the main spaceport near the capital city. The landing pad was empty. The buildings were dark. Minji rolled down the cargo ramp in her chair, feeling exposed and vulnerable. The air was breathable, slightly cold, smelling of ozone. The team spread out, weapons ready. They moved through the city in careful formation. Minji stayed in the middle of the group, hating every second of being protected instead of protecting. The city was a graveyard. Bodies lay in the streets, weeks old. The Vrath were tall, gray-skinned humanoids with too many joints in their limbs. They had died in their homes, in their vehicles, at their workstations. No signs of violence, just death. Biological weapon, Dr. Park Ji-woo said, scanning one of the bodies. She was young, brilliant, and looked ready to be sick. Some kind of plague. Targeted their genetic markers. They set up base camp in an abandoned military facility on the edge of the city. Tall walls, good sight lines, defensible. The security team cleared the buildings one by one. Minji coordinated from the command center they had established. Watching feeds from helmet cameras. That was when they found the kennels. "Captain, you need to see this," one of the security officers said over the comm. His voice sounded strange. Minji wheeled herself to the kennel building. The smell hit her first. Animal musk, strong and sharp. Then she heard the sounds, whimpering, scratching. The cages were large, built for creatures bigger than humans. Most were empty, doors hanging open. But in the back corner, 3 cages still held occupants. They looked like wolves crossed with panthers, each the size of a large dog, but clearly still growing. Midnight black fur with silver markings around their eyes. Forelegs built for speed and power. Intelligent eyes that watched her approach. Cubs, they were cubs. The Vrath used them as war beasts, Dr. Park said, reading from a datapad. Called them Vixarin, psychic pack hunters. The adults are 3 times this size. The cubs pressed against the cage bars, watching Minji. Not aggressive, curious. One of them made a soft, chirping sound. "Where are the adults?" Minji asked. "Dead, probably. From the plague." These 3 survived because they're young. Different metabolism. Minji rolled closer. The cubs did not pull back. Their eyes followed her every movement. Something about the way they looked at her made her skin prickle, like they were reading her somehow. "We should leave them," one of the security officers said. "They're dangerous." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the camp. Motion sensors at the perimeter, multiple contacts approaching fast. "Scavengers," someone shouted over the comm. "Hostile species drawn by the dead city." The team scrambled for weapons. Minji pulled her sidearm and turned her chair toward the door. Through the window, she could see shapes moving in the darkness. Tall, hunched creatures with too many limbs. The attack came fast. The scavengers hit the fence with crude weapons in overwhelming numbers. The security team opened fire, trying to hold them back. Minji rolled out of the kennel building toward the command center, her wheels bouncing over rough ground. Something grabbed her chair from behind. She twisted and fired 3 times. The scavenger fell shrieking. Another one lunged from the left. She shot it twice in the chest, then 3 black shapes exploded past her. The Vixarin cubs hit the scavengers like missiles. Claws and teeth flashed in the darkness. The cubs moved with perfect coordination, targeting throats and limbs. They were fast, vicious, and utterly silent except for the sound of ripping flesh. Within seconds, 5 scavengers lay dead or dying. The rest scattered into the darkness. The cubs stood in a triangle formation around Minji's chair, blood dripping from their muzzles. They looked at her and tilted their heads all at the same time, waiting. Minji stared at them, at the bodies they had dragged to her feet like offerings, at the intelligence burning in their silver eyes. "Good," she said quietly. The cubs' tails wagged once. In perfect synchronization, that was how it started. The cubs refused to leave Minji's side after that night. When she rolled back to her quarters, they followed her. When she told them to stay, they sat down but kept their eyes locked on her. When anyone else approached, they growled low in their throats. Dr. Park Ji-woo found it fascinating. The security team found it concerning. Admiral Cho, contacted through long-range communication, found it potentially useful. Minji found it strange and comforting in ways she could not explain. She named them on the 3rd day. The largest one, with a white star pattern on his chest, became Bora, the lean, Quick female with silver-tipped ears became Hanul. The stocky male with the darkest fur became Dawn. They responded to their names within hours. "They're bonding with you," Dr. Park said one morning, watching Minji feed the cubs in the mess hall. The rest of the team ate at the far end of the room. The Vrath records indicate Vixaren are pack animals. They choose an alpha and follow until death. "I'm not much of an alpha," Minji said, gesturing at her wheelchair. "They don't see it that way." Dr. Park pulled up data on her tablet. "Look at this. Vixaren psychology is based on predator recognition. They respect strength, intelligence, and the ability to lead a hunt. You demonstrated all three when you killed those scavengers while protecting your position. I shot 2 of them. They did the real work." "Exactly. You directed the kill from a strategic position. That's how Vixaren pack leaders operate. They don't need to be the strongest. They need to be the smartest." Dr. Park leaned forward. "The Vrath used neural implants to control them. Forced obedience through technology. But these cubs were never implanted. They're choosing you." Minji looked down at the 3 cubs sitting around her chair. Bora rested his massive head on her knee. Hanul groomed Dawn's ears. They looked peaceful, content. "What happens when they grow up?" Minji asked. "The records say adults are massive, dangerous. Then you'll have 3 massive, dangerous pack members who consider you their leader." Dr. Park smiled. "Could be worse." Over the following weeks, Minji began training them. She started with simple commands: sit, stay, come. The cubs learned faster than any dog she had ever seen. Within days, they understood hand signals. Within 2 weeks, they responded to subtle gestures. She taught them to scout ahead while she rolled behind them. Bora learned to take high positions and watch for threats. Hanul learned to move silently through shadows and report back. Dawn learned to stay close and guard her vulnerable back. They were natural hunters, but they were also intelligent enough to learn human tactics. Minji would point at a training dummy, and Bora would circle it, testing approaches. She would tap her temple, and Hanul would disappear into cover, waiting for the ambush signal. She would touch Dawn's head, and he would position himself between her and any perceived threat. The security team started to relax around them. Some even started to appreciate having 3 highly efficient predators on their side. When scavenger groups tested the perimeter again, the cubs drove them off before they could breach the fence. But Minji noticed something strange. When she gave commands, sometimes the cubs responded before she finished the gesture. Sometimes they moved in formation without any signal at all, as if they knew what she wanted before she expressed it. "They're reading you," Dr. Park said when Minji mentioned it. "Not your mind exactly, but your intent. Your body language, your breathing, your focus. Vixaren are psychic pack hunters. They evolved to coordinate during hunts through a kind of low-level telepathy. They're reading my mind." Minji felt a chill run down her spine. Not thoughts, intentions, emotions. It's how they hunt as a perfect unit. One mind distributed across multiple bodies. Dr. Park pulled up more research on her tablet. The Vrath neural implants were designed to override this natural ability. To force the Vixaren to obey commands instead of following their instincts. "What are you thinking?" Minji asked, recognizing that look on the doctor's face. "The cubs still have the implant ports. Here, at the base of the skull." Dr. Park showed Minji a scan. 3 small sockets, unused but functional. The Vrath use them for control. "But what if we use them for cooperation?" "I don't understand." "Your military implant." Dr. Park pointed at the small interface port behind Minji's ear. "Standard issue for all officers. Used for tactical data and communication. What if we connected your command implant to their neural ports? Not for control, but for communication. Let the link flow both ways." Minji sat back in her chair. "You want to wire my brain to 3 predator animals. I want to let you experience what they experience, and let them understand you better than any hand signal could convey." Dr. Park's eyes were bright with scientific excitement. "Think about it. You're already thinking like a pack leader. This would just make the connection stronger." "It sounds dangerous." "It is dangerous. The Vrath technology is advanced, but we don't fully understand it. There could be side effects. Psychological integration issues. Neural feedback." Dr. Park paused. "But if it works, you'd have 3 sets of enhanced senses feeding tactical data directly to your brain. You could coordinate them like extensions of your own body." Minji looked down at her legs. Extensions of her own body. She used to have those. "How long would the procedure take?" she asked. Dr. Park smiled. 4 hours. maybe 5. The surgery happened the next morning. Dr. Park worked carefully, installing the interface connections between Minji's command implant and the modified Vrath technology. The cubs sat in the corner of the medical bay watching everything with focused attention. They know something's happening, Dr. Park said, making final adjustments. They haven't moved in 3 hours. Minji lay on the surgical table, half her head numb from local anesthetic. She could see the cubs in her peripheral vision. 3 pairs of silver eyes watching her. All right, Dr. Park said finally. I'm activating the connection. Start with Bora, the largest one. His neural patterns are strongest. Minji felt a tingling sensation behind her ear. Then the world shifted. She could feel 4 legs beneath her, strong and powerful. Could feel her tail swishing slowly back and forth. Could smell everything in the room with overwhelming clarity. Dr. Park's nervous sweat, the antiseptic chemicals, the old blood on the surgical tools, the scent of her own body on the table. Her body, 2 bodies, one mind experiencing both simultaneously. Minji? Dr. Park's voice sounded concerned. Can you hear me? Your vitals just spiked. I can hear you, Minji said, but her own voice sounded strange and distant. I can also hear your heartbeat. And the ventilation system. And someone walking down the hallway outside. And she stopped. The sensation was overwhelming. Too much input from too many sources. She felt herself starting to panic. Then something warm and calm flowed through the connection. Not thoughts exactly, more like emotions, reassurance, pack, safe, alpha. Bora was comforting her. Minji focused on that feeling. Let it anchor her. Slowly, carefully, she learned to separate the 2 streams of sensation, her human body on the table, Bora's body in the corner. Different but connected. It's working, she said quietly. I can feel him. Good, that's very good. Dr. Park made notes on her tablet. I'm connecting Hanul next. This might be disorienting. It was disorienting. Suddenly Minji had 3 bodies, 3 sets of sensory input, 3 different perspectives on the same room. But again, that warm feeling of pack and safety helped her adjust. When Dr. Park connected Dayon, Minji stopped thinking of it as overwhelming. It felt natural, right? Like she had been missing parts of herself and they had finally come home. She sat up on the surgical table. The cubs stood up in the corner. All 4 bodies moved at once, responding to the same intention. How do you feel? Dr. Park asked. Minji closed her eyes and experienced the world through 6 eyes, 4 noses, 3 sets of ears. She could feel the strength in 12 legs, 3 tails, 3 powerful bodies, and 1 mind coordinating all of it. I feel dangerous, she said. The real test came 2 days later. A large scavenger pack hit the perimeter at dawn, bigger than any previous attack. At least 40 of them, organized and aggressive. The security team formed defensive positions, but they were outnumbered. Minji rolled out of the command center with the cubs at her sides. She could feel their battle readiness through the neural link. Could feel their muscles coiled and ready. Could feel their absolute confidence in her leadership. She did not need to give verbal commands anymore. She thought about flanking positions, and Bora loped toward the high ground to her right. She focused on the shadows near the fence, and Hanul melted into the darkness. She felt concern about her exposed back, and Dayon pressed closer to her chair. The scavengers came over the fence in a wave. The security team opened fire, dropping several immediately, but more kept coming. Minji raised her sidearm and fired at a scavenger running toward a young private. Through the neural link, she felt Bora launch himself from the high ground, hitting 3 scavengers mid-leap, felt Hanul strike from the shadows, her claws finding throats and tendons, felt Dayon intercept 2 scavengers trying to circle behind her position. It was not like giving commands to separate units. It was like moving 3 bodies she had always possessed. She aimed her gun while simultaneously directing Bora to higher ground, while coordinating Hanul's position for a flanking attack, while ensuring Dayon maintained defensive position. The battle lasted 6 minutes. When it ended, 20 scavengers lay dead. 3 months after the neural link procedure, Minji barely remembered what it felt like to think with only 1 body. She woke each morning experiencing the world through 4 sets of senses simultaneously. Bora's position by the door, already alert and scanning for threats. Hanul stretched out across the foot of her bed, dreaming of hunts. Dayon curled next to her wheelchair, protective even in sleep. The cubs had grown. Bora now stood waist-high at the shoulder, his muscles rippling under midnight fur. Hanul had become lean and quick, built for speed and precision strikes. Dawn was the heaviest, solid, and powerful, perfectly designed for close defense. Through the neural link, Minji experienced their strength as her own. When she needed to reach something on a high shelf, she felt it through Bora's leap. When she needed to move quickly across rough terrain, she experienced it through Hanul's sprint. When she needed to feel safe, she knew it through Dawn's watchful presence. But the link went deeper than physical sensation. She felt their emotions, their thoughts, their pack bond, and they felt hers. They knew when she was sad without her showing it. They understood strategy and tactics without verbal explanation. They anticipated her needs before she expressed them. It was no longer commanding separate units. It was thinking with one mind distributed across 4 bodies. The test of that unity came on a cold morning when alarms screamed across the base. Not scavengers this time, Breath military units. Survivors who had been off-planet during the plague. 20 soldiers in powered armor, angry and looking for revenge. All personnel to defensive positions, Captain Song Minsu shouted over the base-wide comm. He commanded the security forces now, and he was good at his job. Captain Lee, we need you in tactical command. Minji was already moving. She rolled toward the command center while Bora, Hanul, and Daon flanked her position. Through their enhanced senses, she could already smell the approach of the Vrath units, could hear the whine of their armor servos, could feel the vibration of their heavy footsteps through the ground. She made it to the command center and activated the tactical displays. Security feeds showed the Vrath approaching from 3 directions, trying to divide the human forces. Standard doctrine. But Minji had fought the Vrath before. She knew their patterns. Captain Song, she said calmly into her comm, pull your forces back from the east perimeter. Let them think it's weak. That's our supply depot, Captain Lee. Trust me. Captain Song hesitated only a second, pulling back from east perimeter. Through the neural link, Minji sent complex tactical concepts to the Cubs. Not orders, more like shared understanding. Bora felt her plan for high ground assault. Hanul understood the flanking approach. Daon knew his role in close defense. They moved before she finished thinking it through. Bora leapt onto the roof of the supply depot, his claws finding purchase on the metal surface. From that vantage point, his enhanced eyes tracked every Vrath soldier. Minji saw through his vision, marking targets and calculating fields of fire. Hanul slipped into the shadows between buildings, circling toward the Vrath's exposed left flank. Her padded feet made no sound. Her dark fur blended perfectly with the early morning darkness. Through her senses, Minji could smell the Vrath soldiers, each one distinct. Daon stayed close to her wheelchair as she rolled toward a reinforced position overlooking the east perimeter. His bulk blocked any line of fire to her position. Through him, she felt completely secure. The Vrath hit the east perimeter hard, exactly as she expected. They thought they had found a weakness. They were wrong. Minji raised her rifle and fired 3 times. Through Bora's elevated position, she had perfect sight lines. 3 Vrath soldiers dropped, shot through the gaps in their armor. The others scattered, trying to find cover. Then Bora dropped from the roof onto 2 soldiers, his weight and momentum crushing them to the ground. His claws found the weak points in their armor, the places where joints met and protection was thin. He did not stay to fight. He struck and moved, exactly as Minji intended. Hanul hit the left flank like a shadow made solid. She was too fast for the Vrath soldiers to track. By the time they turned to face her, she had already torn through the armor on their legs and disappeared again. They stumbled, fell, became easy targets for the human security forces. The Vrath commander realized the trap too late. He tried to pull his forces back, but Minji had anticipated that too. She sent the feeling of closing the trap through the neural link. Bora drove the Vrath toward the center. Hanul cut off their retreat. And Daon, massive and powerful, charged into their formation from the blind side. The battle became chaos for the Vrath. They were facing an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Human rifles picked them off from defensive positions, while 3 massive predators coordinated attacks from angles that should have been impossible. Minji experienced all of it. She fired her rifle while feeling Bora's claws tear through armor, while sensing Hanul's lightning-fast strikes, while experiencing Daon's raw power as he bowled over 2 soldiers. 4 bodies, 1 tactical mind, perfect coordination. It was over in 8 minutes. 15 Vrath soldiers dead, 5 captured, 0 human casualties. Captain Song approached her position after the battle, his face showing respect and something like awe. Captain Lee, that was the most effective combat coordination I've ever witnessed. How did you do it? Minji looked at the three cubs now sitting calmly around her chair despite being covered in Vrath blood. We think together, she said simply. News of the battle spread through military channels even faster than before. Not just among wounded veterans now, but among active duty command staff. The strategic implications were staggering. One human operator with bonded Vixren could coordinate complex tactical operations that normally required entire teams. Admiral Cho sent a message that evening. His face on the screen looked tired but excited. Captain Lee, I'm authorizing formal expansion of the program. We're calling it the Pathfinder Corps. Bonded teams for reconnaissance, first contact, and hostile environment operations. You're in command. Sir, I can't even walk. You can do something better than walk. You can hunt, and right now humanity needs hunters. He paused. I'm sending you 6 more wounded veterans who've requested bonding. Train them. Build your unit. Show us what's possible. The 6 veterans arrived within 2 weeks, along with 18 rescued Vixren cubs. Minji spent weeks matching them carefully. The bonding process was not something that could be forced. The cubs chose their partners as much as the humans chose them. Corporal Park Seojin had lost both legs to a mine. He bonded with 3 cubs who became his mobility, his speed, his ability to traverse any terrain. Through the neural link, he ran again. He hunted again. Lieutenant Han Nari had suffered brain damage that affected her speech and coordination. She bonded with 4 cubs whose neural patterns somehow compensated for her injured brain pathways. She could not speak clearly anymore, but she could communicate perfect tactical commands through the link. Sergeant Cha Minho had severe PTSD that made him unable to function in high-stress situations. His 3 cubs somehow absorbed his anxiety, distributing it across their pack bond until it became manageable. In combat with the cubs, he was calm and deadly. Each bonding was unique. Each partnership revealed new possibilities, and Minji trained them all. She taught them that the cubs were not tools or weapons. They were partners. Pack. She taught them to feel through the neural link, to think distributed across multiple bodies, to trust the bond completely. She taught them that weakness in one form could become strength in another. The training missions started simple: reconnaissance of abandoned Vrath facilities, mapping unexplored regions of the planet, securing supplies and equipment. But the teams performed so well that military command started sending harder assignments. They hunted down the remaining hostile Vrath survivors, small groups that posed danger to research teams. The bonded pairs moved through Vrath territory with efficiency that amazed observers. They could track, ambush, and eliminate threats without backup or support. They rescued stranded survey teams from hostile wildlife. The cubs could navigate terrain that would kill humans, could fight off predators that no human could face alone, could carry injured personnel to safety through the neural link coordination. They explored alien ruins looking for technology and resources, where normal soldiers would need heavy equipment and support. The Pathfinder teams needed only their bond and their coordination. Every mission proved the concept. Every success built confidence. But Minji noticed something troubling. The cubs were still growing faster than any Vrath records predicted. Bora now stood chest high, easily 300 pounds of pure muscle. Hunnel was larger than an adult wolf. Down was becoming massive, his shoulders broad enough that he could carry Minji on his back if needed. More concerning was their intelligence. They were learning human language through the neural link, not speaking it but understanding it. Minji could think tactical concepts in Korean, and they would understand immediately. They recognized human facial expressions, understood human social dynamics, responded to nuances that should have been beyond animal comprehension. Dr. Park Jiwoo spent long hours studying the cubs, scanning their brain activity, analyzing their neural devi. Minji did not sleep that night. She sat in her quarters with Bora, Hanul, and Down around her. Their neural link open and flowing with complex emotions: fear, hope, trust, the weight of secrets too large for one mind to hold. Through the connection, she experienced fragments of genetic memory from all 3 cubs, not clear thoughts, but impressions, feelings, the echoes of what the Vixren had been before the Vrath. They had been builders, creators. Their pack minds had worked together on projects, that single individuals could never accomplish. Architecture that responded to collective thought. Technology that interfaced directly with distributed consciousness. Art that could only be experienced by multiple minds thinking as one. They had been peaceful. They had no concept of war when the Wrath arrived. How could they fight an enemy when their entire civilization was built on cooperation and shared thought? The Wrath had conquered them not through superior strength, but through exploiting their fundamental nature. The lobotomization had been methodical. Genetic modifications passed down through forced breeding. Chemical treatments. Neural implants that disrupted pack communication. Within 3 generations, the Vixarin had been reduced from people to animals. From civilization to tools, but genetics remembered. DNA carried patterns that could not be completely erased, and in the cubs born after the Wrath handlers died, those ancient sequences began reactivating. The cubs were recovering what had been stolen. They were becoming people again. Minji felt all of this through the neural link, felt the grief of a species that had lost itself, felt the desperate hope of rediscovery, felt the fear that humanity would respond with the same oppression the Wrath had used. "We're not like them," she said aloud, knowing the cubs understood both her words and the intention behind them. "Humans don't enslave partner species." Through the link, she felt Bora's response. Not quite doubt, but caution. Humanity's history with animals was complicated. Dogs had been bred and shaped by human needs. Horses used for work and war. Countless species bent to human purposes. "That's different," Minji argued. "Dogs and horses aren't sapient." "Aren't people?" "You are," Hanul's response came softer. How would humans react when they learned the truth? When they discovered the Vixarin had committed genocide against the Wrath? When they understood the cubs were not simple animals but beings capable of species-wide coordination and long-term planning? Would humans see partners or threats? Dawn's emotion was simplest and strongest. Pack. They had chosen humanity as Pack. Pack did not betray Pack. Minji wanted to believe that would be enough. Dr. Park Jiwoo presented her findings to Admiral Cho and the Military Command Council via secure video link. Minji attended the briefing, her 3 cubs sitting calmly beside her wheelchair. They had agreed to this, to radical honesty, to trusting that humanity would choose partnership over fear. Dr. Park showed the genetic data first, the reactivating sequences, the recovery of lost complexity, the evidence that the Vixarin had been lobotomized by their Wrath masters. "The cubs are not animals," Dr. Park said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "They are people, a sapient species recovering from centuries of forced intellectual disability." The council members looked uncomfortable. Admiral Cho's expression was carefully neutral. "Are they dangerous?" someone asked. "All sapient beings are potentially dangerous," Dr. Park replied, "humans included. The question is whether they choose cooperation or conflict." Then she showed the data on the plague, the genetic targeting, the sophisticated biological engineering required to create something so specific, the evidence that it could only have been developed by beings with advanced knowledge of Wrath biology. "The Vixarin created the plague," Dr. Park said quietly. "They killed their oppressors. All of them. Every Wrath on the homeworld." The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Minji watched Admiral Cho's face carefully. He was a good man, but he was also a military strategist. He would see the implications immediately. A species capable of coordinated genocide, now bonded with human soldiers, now integrated into human military operations, now carrying human tactical knowledge in their distributed minds. "Captain Lee," Admiral Cho said, cutting through the noise, "are you in danger from your bonded cubs?" Minji felt the question through the neural link. Felt Bora, Hanul, and Dawn waiting for her answer. Felt their vulnerability, their hope, their absolute loyalty to their Pack Alpha. "No, sir," she said firmly. "I trust them with my life. I trust them more than I trust myself." "They committed genocide, Captain. They freed themselves from slavery, sir. There's a difference." Minji met the Admiral's eyes through the video screen. The Wrath lobotomized an entire species, reduced people to animals for centuries. The cubs were born into a world where their oppressors were already dead. They chose to bond with us, to trust us, to make us their pack, or to use us as weapons against future threats, or to partner with us as equals. Minji leaned forward in her wheelchair. "Sir, I've spent 3 months linked to their minds. I know what they think, what they feel, what they hope for. They want to rebuild what was taken from them. They see humanity as allies in that effort. Another council member spoke up. What's to stop them from turning on us when they're fully restored? When there are thousands of them instead of dozens? Through the neural link, Minji felt Bora stir. She gave him permission to respond. Bora stood and approached the camera pickup. He looked directly at the lens with his silver eyes. Then, slowly and deliberately, he lowered his head and exposed his throat. The most vulnerable position a predator could take. The ultimate sign of trust and submission. Hanul and Dawn did the same. The council chamber fell silent. "They're answering your question," Minji said quietly. "They're choosing trust. They're showing vulnerability. They're offering partnership." She paused. "The question is whether we're brave enough to accept it." Admiral Cho was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "Dr. Park, in your professional opinion, are the Vixaran capable of functioning as equal partners with humanity? Not as tools, not as weapons. As people." "Yes, sir," Dr. Park said without hesitation. "They're different from us. Their cognition is distributed across pack minds rather than individual consciousness, but they're absolutely capable of ethical reasoning, long-term planning, and cooperative partnership. They're people, sir, just people shaped by different evolutionary pressures." And the genocide was a response to centuries of enslavement and forced lobotomization. Humans have committed genocide for less cause. Dr. Park looked uncomfortable but stood by her words. "I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying it's understandable given the circumstances." Admiral Cho turned his attention back to Minji. "Captain Lee, you've worked with these beings more closely than anyone. You share their thoughts. What do you recommend?" Minji had spent the entire night thinking about this answer. She had felt the cubs' hopes and fears, had seen through their genetic memories what they had lost and what they hoped to regain, had understood the risk they were taking by being honest with humanity. "I recommend we extend formal alliance, sir. Not master and tool, not trainer and animal. Equal partners. One vote per sapient being regardless of species or form." She felt the cubs' surprise and hope through the neural link. "The Vixaran are recovering their civilization. We can help them rebuild or we can repeat the Vrath's mistakes. I know which choice honors humanity's values." "That's a radical proposition, Captain." "Yes, sir, but we're facing a radical situation." Minji gestured at her wheelchair. 6 months ago I was half a person, broken, useless. The cubs made me whole again. Not by being my tools, but by being my partners. My pack, they gave me back my purpose. I think humanity owes them the chance to recover theirs. The council debated for hours. Minji was excused from the secure channel but remained in the command center with her cubs, waiting for a decision. Through the neural link, she felt their anxiety, their understanding that their entire species' future hung on human judgment. Other bonded veterans gathered in the command center. Corporal Park Seojun with his 3 cubs, Lieutenant Han Nari with her 4, Sergeant Cha Mingho with his 3, all the partnerships that had formed, all the wounded soldiers who had found purpose again through the bond. They waited together. Human and Vixaran pack. The answer came just before dawn. Admiral Cho's face appeared on the screen, looking exhausted but resolved. "The council has voted," he said. "It was close. Extremely close. But humanity has decided to extend formal alliance to the Vixaran people." Minji felt relief crash through her like a wave. Through the neural link, she felt the cubs' overwhelming emotion. Hope. Gratitude. Joy. "However," Admiral Cho continued, "this alliance comes with conditions. First, transparency. The Vixaran must be honest about their capabilities and intentions. No more secrets. Second, integration. Vixaran and humans will work together on equal terms, with representation in all decisions that affect either species. Third, accountability. The genocide of the Vrath will be investigated fully. The Vixaran will explain their actions and reasoning. Humanity will judge whether their cause was justified." "Understood, sir," Minji said. "Captain Lee, you're being promoted to commander and given command of the Pathfinder Corps. Your mission is to build the first truly integrated human Vixaran military unit. Demonstrate that this partnership can." 6 months after the alliance was formalized, Commander Lee Minji stood before the Colonial Council in the Great Assembly Hall on Earth. She did not stand exactly. She sat in her wheelchair with Bora, Hanul, and Dawn positioned around her in a protective triangle. But the word that came to mind was stood because presence had nothing to do with legs. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from 42 human colonies, scientists, military brass, media observers, and for the first time in human history, representatives from another sapient species. 20 adult Vixren lay calmly beside their bonded human partners. They had grown to full size now, massive predators that could tear a human apart without effort. But they lay still, silver eyes watching the proceedings with obvious intelligence. The debate had raged for 3 days. Humanity was divided on the question of full Vixren citizenship. Some argued they had proven themselves as partners. Others claimed genocide, regardless of circumstances, disqualified them from equal status. Some feared what the Vixren might become with full access to human technology and resources. Others believed denying them equality would repeat the Vrath's mistakes. Minji had been called to testify again, to speak for the partnership, to explain what she had learned in the year since bonding with her cubs. Commander Lee, Counselor Young Junho said, his voice carrying through the chamber's acoustics, "You've lived with the Vixren longer than any other human. You share their thoughts through the neural link. The council needs to understand, can we trust them?" Minji looked at Bora, then Hanul, then Daon. Through the neural link, she felt their attention on the question, felt their understanding of how much depended on her answer. "Counselor, you're asking the wrong question," she said. "Trust isn't something you can measure objectively. It's something you build through experience, through seeing someone at their worst and choosing to believe in their best." That sounds like philosophy, not policy. Then let me be practical. In the past 6 months, bonded human Vixren teams have conducted 83 missions in hostile territory. We've rescued 47 stranded colonists. We've mapped 16 unexplored systems. We've made first contact with 3 new species. Our casualty rate is the lowest of any military unit in history. She gestured at the Vixren lying calmly around the chamber. These beings risk their lives for human partners every single day. They protect us. They trust us with their thoughts and emotions through the neural link. They've given us everything they have. The question isn't whether we can trust them. It's whether we're worthy of their trust. Counselor Park Soo-jin spoke next, her voice sharp. "But they committed genocide, Commander. They killed an entire species. How can we build a civilization with beings capable of that?" Minji had known this question was coming. She had prepared for it. But the answer still hurt. "Humanity has committed genocide too," she said quietly. "Multiple times throughout our history. We've enslaved entire populations. We've destroyed cultures. We've made choices based on fear and survival that we're ashamed of now." She paused, letting the uncomfortable truth settle over the chamber. The Vixren did something terrible. They know it was terrible. They carry the weight of it every day, but they're also trying to be better. To build something new. To partner with us in creating a civilization that doesn't repeat those mistakes. And if they decide to turn on us, to eliminate another species they perceive as a threat, through the neural link, Minji felt Bora's response to the question. She gave him permission to answer. Bora stood and walked to the center of the chamber floor. 20 adult Vixren watched him. 40 human partners watched him. Hundreds of observers watched him. He sat down and looked directly at Counselor Park. Then, slowly and deliberately, he laid down completely, rolled onto his back, exposed his throat and belly, the most vulnerable position a predator could take. One by one, every Vixren in the chamber did the same. 20 massive predators lying on their backs, throats exposed, completely defenseless. The chamber fell absolutely silent. "They're answering your question," Minji said softly. "They're showing you vulnerability, trust. They're giving you the power to destroy them and trusting you not to use it. That's not the behavior of beings planning betrayal." Counselor Yang leaned forward. "Or it's very sophisticated manipulation." "Then watch this." Minji sent a complex thought through the neural link to Bora. Not an order. A question. A request for permission. She felt his response. Trust. Alpha. Permission granted. "I'm going to share something I've never shown publicly," Minji said. "Through the neural link, I'm going to let Bora access my tactical knowledge. My understanding of human military capabilities. Our weapons, our defenses, our strategies." The council member shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, that's classified information." "Yes, and I'm giving Bora complete access to it right now through the neural link." Minji focused, opening her mind fully to the connection. He can see everything I know about humanity's military strengths and weaknesses. He can share it with every other Vixren through their pack communication. That's treason, someone shouted. No, Minji said calmly. It's trust. Real trust. The kind that doesn't hold anything back. She looked at Counselor Yang. If the Vixren wanted to betray humanity, I just gave them everything they need. Let's see what they do with it. Through the neural link, she felt Bora processing the information. Felt him understanding human military doctrine, weapon systems, defensive structures. Felt him sharing selected pieces with the other Vixren in the chamber through their pack communication. Then she felt his response. Not gratitude for the military intelligence. Not interest in human weaknesses. Just a simple, profound emotion. Trust returned. Through the link, Bora showed her Vixren plans for the future. Designs for architecture that combined human engineering with pack-mind coordination. Ideas for distributed technology that could benefit both species. Concepts for education systems that taught both human and Vixren children to think across the boundary of individual and collective consciousness. He was sharing his people's greatest advantages. Their unique insights, their special strengths. In exchange for her trust, he was offering his own. He's showing me Vixren secrets, Minji said, tears running down her face. Things that would take us decades to figure out on our own. He's giving them freely because I trusted him first. She looked at the council. That's what partnership means. Not holding back. Not keeping weapons in reserve. Trusting completely and accepting the vulnerability that comes with it. Counselor Park stood slowly. Commander, are you saying the Vixren would share their advanced technology with humanity? Even knowing we could use it against them? I'm saying they already are sharing it. Through every bonded pair, through every partnership. They've been giving us gifts since the beginning, and most of us were too focused on seeing them as tools to notice. The debate continued for hours after Minji's testimony. She waited outside the chamber with her cubs, knowing the vote would be close. Through the neural link, she felt their anxiety, their hope, their understanding that this decision would shape the future of both species. Other bonded veterans waited with her. Corporal Park Seojin, who could run again through his cub's legs. Lieutenant Han Nari, who could think clearly again through distributed pack consciousness. Sergeant Cha Minho, who could face combat without crippling fear because his cubs absorbed and distributed his anxiety. Wounded humans made whole by partnership with wounded beings recovering their civilization, both species healing each other. The council chamber doors opened. Counselor Yang emerged, his face unreadable. The Colonial Council has voted, he announced formally. By a margin of 54 to 48 with 3 abstentions, the Council extends full citizenship to the Vixren people. Relief crashed through Minji like a physical force. Through the neural link, she felt her cub's overwhelming emotion. Joy, gratitude, hope. However, Counselor Yang continued, citizenship comes with full responsibilities. The Vixren are now subject to human law. They will participate in governance as equal partners. 1 vote per sapient being regardless of form or species. They will contribute to the defense of human colonies. They will work toward restorative justice for the genocide of the Vrath. He paused, looking directly at Minji. And they will help us prepare for what comes next. Because when the galaxy learns about the Vrath's fall, we will face judgment together. That judgment came sooner than anyone expected. 3 weeks after the citizenship vote, a Korthan diplomatic vessel entered human space. The Korthans had been the Vrath's primary trading partners. They demanded answers about the plague that had destroyed their allies. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a human diplomatic station. Minji attended as commander of the Pathfinder Corps. 20 Vixren attended as representatives of their people. Human ambassadors attempted to manage the situation. Ambassador Ri Insu began with careful diplomatic language, but the Korthan representative cut him off. We know what happened, the Korthan said, her voice harsh through the translator. The Vixren killed our allies, an entire species, and humanity shelters them, partners with them. This is an act of war, Minji rolled forward before anyone.